What's up? This is Dan Friedenberg for FIGGERRIDOUT.com, and today I'm with Douglas Dowell, who has learned some of the world's leading mind control techniques. Thanks for being here today, Douglas. You are probably aware that I'm pretty clear on the limitations of attempted mind control. And I should mention to you in the audience that Douglas has not tricked me into introducing him. So, can you introduce yourself, please, Douglas?
Sure. I'm Douglas Dowell. I'm a commercial real estate entrepreneur, and along that journey, it is a mindset-heavy activity, like all entrepreneurship. And so, along the way, I discovered the art form that Tony Robbins uses to create change, and I'm like, "That's cool. I really like what he's saying, but how does he do it?" So I really kept asking that question, and so finally figured out the background of NLP and actually got a certification in it. So
That's really awesome. And so, to start it off lighter, before we get too far into the weeds, you see I have a hat that says "Real Estate is a Scam," and Douglas has a background for real estate macro podcasts. I assure you, it's not about all that kind of stuff, not that kind of silliness. But I can say, Douglas, that I underestimated you. And here on Figure It Out WTF editions, I get that many of you in the audience have never seen a Figure It Out interview. So you need to know what you're going to be getting out of it before we dig in. Now, I wouldn't describe what Douglas knows how to do as flat out manipulation, but it's essentially the limit of what can be done. But Douglas, if someone wants to manipulate me personally, like flattery is good, but if you actually do something for me, then you can control me pretty easily, as I don't let that get noticed, but unnoticed, I mean. But starting off that way, on a scale of 1 to 10 of difficulty, how hard do you think it would be for someone who knows what you know about NLP, hypnosis, and whatnot to
Mhm.
flat out manipulate me, where 10 means basically impossible and 1 means the door is left open and unlocked?
I would say it varies widely from practitioner. There are some very, 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 very well talented hypnotherapists that have been doing it for a long, 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 long time that are very good, that can probably do some weird things. So unless they're that individual, which is a very, I mean, literally minute, literally, there may be less than 1,000 people in the planet that can do it. So generally, I would say absolutely not mind control, but what I could say is they can influence. So it depends on what our definitions are, but outright control, very, very like a 2 out of 10.
Okay, so but it sounds like you're getting more into general rather than me in particular.
Right.
So, and that's pertinent for the next question. So, like, is there something about my past or something that would make you think about me being particularly susceptible or unsusceptible to
Um,
these things?
I believe you really, really difficult because the way you in particular are such a connoisseur is the word I would use of language. So when people are doing weird things with language, it would be immediately in your conscious mind. You're like, what is he doing with that? So immediately, I think your alarm bells would be like immediately going off because like he's doing some sort of pattern with that. And what is he doing? What is he? So you immediately would be on guard to say, whoa, 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 wait a minute. I'm not liking this, where this is going. Um, and so that is the first general principle of manipulation. Outright manipulation is critical factor bypass. So immediately, if you're on guard that I'm trying to do something weird, then immediately it's the opposite. It's not critical factor bypass, it's critical factor activation, and almost certainly would prevent any really under the radar things from happening for sure.
Okay, so everything has to be consensual, and I think that that is
Right.
like that's encouraging, right? But you got your law degree as a way to solidify your real estate career,
That's right.
and so the reason I bring that up is because if you're talking about manipulation or getting people to believe certain things or whatever, what about like learning to cross-examine or any kind of training related to like in the process of law school and getting a law degree? What actually has helped as far as a skill of, let's say white hat negotiation or different this sort of what do you want to call it? Gaming a biological system or intellectual system or something to get results.
I wouldn't say the things I learned in law school really have anything to do with it. Recently, I came across the book called "Never Split the Difference" by Chris Voss, and what he teaches is much more effective in human negotiation. Actually, what they're talking about are things in terms of labeling, in terms of using mirrors to, like, when somebody says a statement to you, you give the statement back to them as a way of getting them to focus their attention and give you more information on that. So really active listening, which is the thing I really probably could have used the most, and I didn't realize how bad I was at it, honestly, until like literally a year ago, where I'm like, man, I'm really suck at that. I really need to improve. And you can do it, and there are practice skills that you can do to do reflective listening, which is the core component of the never split the difference skill set. I would say is the active listening. So really, it's just good listening is the number one key of first creating a change in someone, and it's influence. It's not manipulation. And I will say, unethically, you can do some weird things. You can, if you don't have an ethical compass, then you can do some bad things. However, I think in the long run, it will come back on you, and it creates bad karma for yourself. So I'm not really that concerned about. I used to be more concerned about, well, you could be manipulative with a lot of this stuff, and I don't think you can. I think in the long run, you might be able to get away with it on a short run, but in the long term, it'll come back on you anyway. So I'm not as worried about that as I used to be.
Awesome, awesome, and that's really where the idea of calling this the WTF edition of Figure It Out, this series, is to get into something where I think people, if they're going to be watching this content, they're going to be pretty clear on like where the line is drawn. But if you haven't seen any of the other Figure It Out series interviews, there's the Dream Job series, and the idea is all of my guests in that case, they have some sort of job that is enviable in some case,
Mm,
and I wanted to ask them, so what are the determinants? What are the character traits where you either have to cultivate them or you have to have them in place if you're even going to have a chance? And which ones
right.
do you need to get rid of in order to stand any sort of chance? And then, especially in the context of having no friends, family, or cash.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
and so that really was me trying to leave a trail of breadcrumbs to the general public, completely for free, showing it's like, okay, well, here I am figuring it out and getting closer to my way of financial freedom,
Mm,
and I want to make sure that I have a way to make time, being the person who actually made it there and leaving those secrets to success. But if you do have no friends, no family, or no cash, then having negotiation skills are going to be absolutely pivotal in my opinion. So, my next question for you, and I'm kind of biasing your answer. I have the statement I wrote down here of the myth of merit leading to success. So, in the context of knowing NLP, knowing negotiations, and all these kinds of things, like, is it fair to say that it's a myth that merit leads to success? What does it actually look like, in those sorts of things? And because I think I've heard I've heard some fun sayings. One of my favorite ones was "closed mouths don't eat."
yes.
And so, your self advocacy is definitely going to matter getting to success. And then, of course, if you always ask for a discount, you're going to get a discount more often than somebody who never asks for a discount. And then that way you're going to be able to take some calculated risks that people who don't ask for discounts won't be able to compete with. But the myth of merit leading to success, what does that make you think of?
I really don't like this aspect in a way, but unfortunately, marketing skill exceeds competence in a market economy. Your ability to get attention is the first thing, because if people don't know who you are, they won't pay you anything. It's just logically the case. So therefore, the ability to grab attention with the words you say and what you're saying, and in the order in which you say them, probably pretty useful to have in your tool belt. And that's one of the things that neuro-linguistic program is helpful about. Like, what are some words? Like when I say the words, "Hey you," Dan, can you imagine what it'd be like if you had everything you wanted from a commercial real estate deal? So notice the difference. Hey, you versus can you imagine? And that's a one word, like a prime example of when I say the word imagine, that almost forces you to do that thing I'm asking you to do. And so while I can't outright manipulate you, I can stack the deck a little bit more in my favor by using strategic words that if you focus now on what I'm saying and listen to the sound of my voice, you'll realize sooner or later what I mean. And so when I use them in that order, I can create attention, and I can also create focus. And that really it's just that ability to grab focus, I think, is really the most important thing. And that goes back to our biggest thing about the top level question, which was if is merit most important? And unfortunately, you have to be able to get focus first and then prove how good you are. And which that's, I think, the ultimate is you have to have competence, but first, before competence, you have to have marketing to show your competence is essentially what I believe.
Right, but you also need the network, and I think that a lot
Yes.
of people, if like I come from a tech background, so like all sorts of people that I've worked with for my entire life, they would not want to be sitting here talking to you wonderful people in the audience, just the people inside the little camera thing here, but they wouldn't be caught dead doing it because
Yeah.
they just don't want to open themselves to strangers, and I assume it's the problems that come from that. But part of the thing with success is, like I mentioned, you have to be networking like crazy. You have to find the people who are involved. And I like to use the example, and I don't want to pick on librarians because it's a lot more honest of a profession than a lot of others. But I like to use it like if you're hanging out with books don't have money. And so it's difficult to make money in the presence of books. It's very easy to make money in the presence of people because people do have money. And then it's even easier to make a lot of money if you are doing business with people who already have a lot of money. You cannot get a lot of money out of people who do not have much money. So really, like like with the title of my book and the site, real estate is a scam, a lot of what was going through my head is like, okay, so what upwards mobility is there? And if you watch my body language through my YouTube videos over the last couple of years, you should watch like a bit of a cooling off
Mm.
about a lot of things. And the biggest reason is because I do think that there is upwards mobility, but it's in the most boring way imaginable, really. It's just, the thing is really obvious. Like, hey, you notice that they're, spending a lot of money on those big buildings? Well, if you get involved in that, more will cross your table.
That's right.
But I think the real trick to success, other than like your network is your net worth, all that kind of stuff, and I said the myth of merit leading to success, is that real success, real wealth means everyone has to have an equity multiple play. If you don't have an equity multiple play, you're going to be broke for life. Now, a lot of people end up doing that through their own house. And of course, then they run the risk of, say, like a tree falling on their house, and then insurance like going out of business or jerking them around, or basically,
Yes.
you losing your entire investment actually ending in, costing you out of pocket, all that sort of stuff. That's like the worst thing that can happen if your equity multiple play is that. But so as far as like, you've been in real estate for all this time, uh, can you talk about equity multiple and what people are looking for that? Is that a good tee
Yeah,
off?
I think it really is. And in terms of what you're really trying to accomplish with real estate, either as an active investor or a limited partner, depending on your lifestyle choices and what matters for you, essentially you're trying to get that upside of the effect of leverage. And essentially, leverage in the commercial real estate space is wonderful, because it allows you to do things you couldn't do otherwise. Now, with all leverage, there is risk involved, so you must make sure it's reasonable leverage. And as long as you're doing wise things with the amount of leverage you're using, you can get to that higher equity multiples, and that's really what you're really shooting for, that you can't accomplish in any other way that I've found. And again, I've studied wealth from, I literally went to law school to study how do rich people get rich. Literally the reason why I went. As much tax law as I could stomach. And past that point several times, trust me, especially like partnership tax. But that's something my therapist and I are working through. Just kind of kidding. No, but seriously, what vehicles do we wealthy people use? And you start thinking in terms of, well, what am I doing with my retirement? Is it in a work-based 401k that I have no control over, or is it in a solo 401k that I control and that I can use them to deploy in real estate? Now, I'm also, unlike most people, I'm a commercial real estate guy, but I also admit that equities are sometimes a good play. But the question you have to ask is, who's controlling that investment? How are they doing it? And so unless I can control it and put it in, for most people, an index fund is really a great place instead of having to actively manage, which is very emotional. And I don't think most people realize that the biggest problem with equities is the emotional component most people just can't handle. You're going to have down days, and being able to know when, okay, now I've had a down day, do I sell? And most people just overreact based on emotion. Or like in the case of, like, say, a Tesla stock that, oh, this thing is going to infinity, and I'm just gonna keep buying Tesla when it's a house of cards as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So there are issues like that where I'm like, okay, this is just another prime example. Like, you saw that with AMC and GameStop. It's like there's no rational behavior going on in the market right now. And so
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that happens, you're like, this has nothing to do with reality. And the good news about commercial real estate, the cycle is so slow that the chances of behavioral errors kicking in are a lot lower. Not to say they don't happen; they happen in every market. No
Mm-hmm.
market is free of irrationality. I'll say that, but the rational behavior is much more easier to come by because the decision cycle is so long.
I love that, especially because, like, way further down, I have this thing about financial advisors and their conflict of interest, and I think you kind of check that box already for us. But if we're talking about having the skills as far as being able to, what do you want to color people's decisions, be influential, whatever you want to call it. One of the things that also comes out comparing equities to, say, commercial real estate or real estate in general is it's the distance and the political what do you want to call it, momentum. It's just basically, if there are big problems, if there's a big revolt, and then you really have to talk your way out of things. Like, one of the things that actually crossed my mind, like, I think long term. So it's like, well, how would I be remembered, is
Mm.
something that makes me go through my head. And so right now, if you are, oh, I'm a landlord, okay, it's like you're kind of the butt end of a lot of stereotypes, and it's
Yeah.
not good, especially seeing as though the market is so competitive right now. People are pushing so hard to do better for tenants. But as far as speaking to like what I have as my note here is like, I think because people react emotionally rather than rationally for the most part, uh, you have to, if you're going to negotiate well, if you're going to be influential, you have to recognize the state that the speaker is in first.
Yes.
And in the context of being a landlord, I think it's like, how do you turn around to a tenant and bring them to believe anything other than the stereotype, which is just, oh well, I got here because daddy bought it for me and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm just getting paid to be alive. Okay, now that's the fiefdom, medieval times interpretation of a
Yeah.
landlord, right?
Yeah.
But so the first thing, like it just hits me is that if stuff goes down, I like real estate because whoever's in power is going to be hitting up the landlords for money, no matter what. So there's a certain security in knowing that like they kind of have to play ball with you a little bit, unless they got enough friends who can run buildings, right? But when it comes to like tenants saying that, okay, well, my landlord is the only nearby member of the bourgeoisie,
Mm.
and so we're going to get the pitchforks and whatever, all that kind of stuff out. What like oh, I've heard some people answering that question. It's a super sensitive one. It's like what does the message have to be? I got some versions of my own, but like using NLP, like what kind of comments, even just like laying the groundwork there, come to mind, or what do you
Um,
think?
it is very much a look. It's very akin to someone who is addicted to alcohol, for example, or addicted to smoking.
Mm-hmm.
There is an addictive aspect to the amount of rage and anger in today's political spectrum, and it's both sides. I'm not saying either one side has a franchise on it. Our media is designed, and I say this one more time, designed to put you in that angry state. You know why? So you'll come back and buy that they can sell you advertisement. That's the only reason why we're at this fever pace right now. When you sit down across the table, and this is how it used to be, and my grandparents are from a small town in Colorado where you sit down at a diner and you talk to your neighbor. And so on social media, it's super easy to say, well, you're just an idiot. Whereas if you're across the table from someone, you still might call them an idiot, but the chances of that happening are significantly lower. And so the problem with social media and today's media environment is it's super easy to be just outright rude and not, and it's click whir, and there's no chance of any rational discussion at all. And
Mm-hmm.
so the rational discussion that needs to be had is, do you realize, Mr. Socialist, who says that housing should be free, that there is a cost associated with that? And the fact that you are fighting me as a developer to bring more housing to the market, you're perpetuating the monopoly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So all socialists should be capitalists when it comes to housing, and they don't want, they're not. So in terms of, it's a linguistic game that I have to learn how to craft, and I'm not quite there yet on how to craft that argument, or that influence piece of saying, you do realize, to get what you want, which is better, more affordable housing, you have to join with me and join the capitalists who want to bring more housing to the market, not make it
Mm-hmm.
harder to do.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're aligning with NIMBYs that don't want it because this is their, oh, I believe in the capitalism. This is a NIMBY almost certainly. Oh, I believe in capitalism, but just not in my neighborhood.
Right, right. Yeah, so I love that. And you got a couple of things that put into my mind. Like one of the biggest, like the simplest one that I've been thinking of, and this was like a culmination of the 366 topics and 366 days that are also on this YouTube channel. That's a good reason to subscribe, right? I guess it's
It's down there
anyway.
somewhere.
Yeah, just here down there. But so the thing about that, I like to jump immediately to pragmatics, okay, which is Sure, it starts off as as a pretty bourgeois, answer, which is like, I compare the service that a landlord does to that of a maid. And I think that even the most devout socialist will admit in their heart of hearts, if they could afford it, if they were doing something like that, they'd probably be willing to agree that there are some jobs out there, such as being a physician, okay, where it's more important for you to do your work as a physician than it is for you to be tidying up your own room. So
Right.
as a result, having a maid would be preferable. Of course, I'm talking somebody who's paid in, a free market, and they can actually
Hmm.
afford to support themselves from what they do. Okay, so what I'm really trying to say is that everybody would have a maid if they could afford it,
Yes.
including the maid, actually, now that I think about it, right? But
Yes.
right, it makes more sense to, like, clean 12 rooms and then have somebody clean yours at the same time. Like, I'm just thinking just from that sort of
Yes, exactly.
economics.
The specialization effect for sure. Absolutely.
Right, but a landlord, that's what you're buying for the hallways and surrounding areas. Okay, it's like you're paying for a maid. It's like I heard somebody make a kind of snarky remark when COVID first started up, and it was a sign. It said, "We apologize for the trash in the hallways," and then below that, in smaller letters, is like, "Didn't notice any trash in your hallways? Please keep paying your rent so we can continue to remove the trash from the hallways." Right? And
Yeah.
it's like, they got a great point. That's what you're paying for. Now, of course, the SEC is out there, and I do believe they're trying to quell the amount of speculation that's going on. I think it really screams out in 506B in general. But so the first argument I use as far as PR goes for landlords towards tenants is, hey, you want this stuff taken care of. And then the second thing is, like, do you think for one heartbeat that the government can't put us out of business if they want to? Because they can. Like these big assets, it's not a secret that they're worth a lot of money. So everybody with money is looking to get a piece of a business with reliable cash flow. So trust me, the claws of the financial sector and the government, they're in there and in there deep, just like a farmer or anything else. So,
Yeah.
like, I don't think the beef is with landlords. So I guess that's really what I'm trying to say. That's my most convincing argument, but I use it out of reason and a little bit out of emotion, just because of the things I choose on there. But anyway,
Yeah.
so those are my thoughts. I don't know if you had any rejoinders or anything on
Well,
that
I
little.
think that is exactly the problem. There's frustration that there's no affordable housing, but the finger gets pointed at developers, and you want to blame them, but again, there's confusion. We are not in a unicorn and Candyland world where you just build something because you want it. There has to be a profit motive behind what we're doing, and if we can't be profitable in doing it, then we won't do it. And so therein lies the battle. And I'm very interested in affordable housing in California. They literally make it so hard to build. It's like you just basically you give up your hands. You just like, why would I do that? I'm hard headed enough. I probably still will do that. But the reality is that you have to understand that I have to deliver a return. And I think here's another misconception too. Most developers I've ever met, at least especially the starting out ones, don't have a big pile of cash and they're just going around buying stuff. They have investors and they have banks that they answer to. So it's just not a bunch of free money laying around, and I'm just not some seventh generation robber baron that's had decades and decades and decades of Rothschild money or something like that. That's not the case in most developers that I know.
Right, right,
Um,
exactly. And also people who do the buy, rehab and then refinance, those are the people who buy the assets and keep them. It's the same deal. It's just I just think it's really disingenuous to be always pointing the finger away from the government
yeah.
personally. It's a pretty scary situation, the amount of cards that they have. And
Well, and to that point, they can do more things in terms of creating more financial incentives
strife.
to do more financial incentives to do affordable development. They have some good programs, but there needs to be better programs for affordable housing. But aside from that, local governments don't get enough heat for the amount of crap that they put developers through to give them product. There should
Sure,
be
sure.
there should be a big reform, and that's one of the biggest problems right now. Local governments basically create unnecessary burdens and barriers to development.
Right, right. And like there's always criticism. It's like, oh, well, you paid some rich developer to do it. When we've got people starving over here, we don't need those fat cats. It's like, well, you really ought to do it with the people who are actually successful at doing it because people are doing repeat business, right?
That's right.
But the other thing is the shoe isn't really put on the other foot, which is that if there's a housing crisis, why aren't more people going out to build houses? Like that's how you fix it. And it's not
That's
by
right.
waiting for somebody else to go out and build a house. It's by
That's
learning how to
right.
swing a damn hammer. And
Right.
it's like, sure. I do think that the financial sector and the lack of upwards mobility, just like even from a arithmetical perspective, you have to have some sort of real estate exposure. I think if you're going to have a comfortable retirement, and so it all ends up trickling down through to people. Anybody who wants to get ahead and is really ambitious, they're going to have to deal with razor thin margins, just because real estate is such a mature industry. It's not like like I for a while I was drop shipping SD cards, and it like the margin was like, I don't even think it was 2%.
Mm,
So like you sell $100 SD card, which wasn't really a thing, but you sell $100 SD card and you're getting $2 of profit, which means holding it is the risk that you're going to have this card that's going down in value all the time. That's a great comparison to something like construction, because construction, I've heard people say, is like you could play lots of fun and games, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be about 3%. And
that's right.
it's so much overhead for 3%. That's what the broker's making, man. And the broker's like in and out. And then, so you
Yeah.
think there's a ton of space?
Mm,
Well, there is for people who are really, really patient
yeah.
and get the right teams.
That's right.
So that's what I guess it's all about. And so this has been a Figure It Out WTF edition, where I guess we're trying to solve all the world's problems. That's one of the things that I wanted to do with this Figure Out series, is I wanted to become the internet's pet project and basically go ahead and tell me how I'm wrong. Give me the airtight answer for why I've got it wrong, because I'm just seeing, well, how far can we bring this? So figure it out. There's a book on Amazon stuff. Real estate is a scam. There's a book for that as well, that's talking about how not to do real estate, because even though your coach, who's an entrepreneur, is just making things work and has been doing it for this a long amount of time, if you're putting in a ton of effort, you might be going, well, I don't want to lose it all just because I was breaking the law without knowing it. So I put out that book for anybody interested in that kind of stuff. Douglas, you got the Real Estate Macro podcast,
That's
so
right.
they should search for you on YouTube and subscribe there. Is that the way
That's
to make that
correct.
happen?
Absolutely. That's right. And LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn.
Exactly. Find us both on LinkedIn. Thank you for watching all this. It's been a roller coaster ride. If you have any other ideas for people who I need to talk to, stuff I need to discuss, stuff that I just don't know and haven't learned, and I keep on demonstrating my ignorance, go ahead and comment and tell me what it is so we can clean up that mess. Thanks. Bye.
Hey, so this is a message for Dan Fredenberg, and I just want to know, what kind of awful person defaces the angelic and serene Canadian accent on purpose? I mean, do you think not saying A is charming? Or learning how to say a boot properly? I bet you don't even like maple syrup. Shame.